And I don't want to say anything about Kamala Harris, but
I'm a top tier candidate.
So it turns out the vice president, by the way, she was the first choice of Wall Street. You guys know that. Because on Martha's Vineyard, before the primary, they all had a meeting. She was at it, and they had anointed her. She was going to be the next president. They thought we'd get a black woman as president, and that would be great for Wall Street because of identity politics. So we're not going to fix the problem. We're going to put somebody who looks like you in charge of the problem to fuck you. And that's what they were trying to do with Kamala Harris. Well, she couldn't get a vote. Nobody would fucking vote for her. So then they went to their second most reliable tool, which is Joe Biden, the guy who brought you the bankruptcy bill, which fucked you out of declaring bankruptcy if you have student debt or medical bills, right? So they went to him, and so then they got both of them. So now they have tool number one and tool number two is running our country, which means our country's being run by Citigroup and Goldman Sachs and Bank of America. That's who's running our country, which is why there are people living under every fucking bridge in every city, no matter where you fucking go to, in the richest country in the world, where 80% of the workers live paycheck to paycheck before COVID, and 50% of the people can't afford a $400 emergency. That's the fucking world we're living in because it's being run by Goldman Sachs, and fucking Joe Biden is their tool. And that's why he won't give you a living wage. So look, the GOP, this is what Ari Berman, he's very concerned. He tweeted out, the GOP could take back the House in 2022 by picking up 6 to 13 seats under the new gerrymandered maps in Georgia, Texas, Florida, and North Carolina alone. The Democrats are facing redistricting bloodbath if they don't pass a ban on partisan gerrymandering ASAP. You can't out-organize extreme gerrymandering. Hey, you want to know how you make sure you take over the fucking House? How about if you pass $2,000 checks? That's another way you can take back the fucking House. How about you do shit for people? And that takes, how about if you gave them a minimum wage, a living wage, reduced their student debt, ended the war and invested that money back in the people, you wouldn't have to worry about losing the fucking House. But when you don't do anything for anybody, you're going to lose the fucking House. Because it's one-party rule. And don't fucking kid yourself. Joe Biden works for the same people that Donald Trump works for, Mitt Romney works for, John McCain works for, George Bush works for, and Dick Cheney. He is exactly who those fucking people are. And don't bullshit yourself. You want health care? You don't have to fight Republicans for it. You have to fight Democrats for health care. You want a living wage? You gotta fight Democrats for a living wage. You want student debt relief? You gotta fight Democrats. You wanna end those fucking wars? You gotta take Joe Biden down. Fuck the Republicans, but you gotta fuck the Democrats harder. And I am gonna fuck those Democrats until the day I fucking die, no matter how much it bothers them. They can't get rid of me, and they can't get rid of you, and we are not letting up. God damn, I love a second show.
Right? I think his second show is better than the first.
Oh,
It's crazy because in the first show, Jimmy was encouraging everybody to vote for AOC, to organize for Joe. And then the second show is a huge transformation. So really, I credit you guys for this. This is, I'm noticing a huge shift in him, and it's stunning. Stunning.
I have had a change of heart.
Yeah.
It was the tempura cauliflower backstage.
The first show was actually a fundraiser. This is really awkward. The first show was actually a fundraiser for Barack Obama's new presidential library in Jackson Park. So it's we're all the proceeds.
People need a place to find out about who Barack Obama was, and I'm all for that. He's our first black president. What are you, a racist? So because Kamala Harris is tanking so badly. By the way, she's the most unpopular vice president in the history of the country.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
She's more unpopular than Spiro Agnew. Spiro Agnew was more unpopular. And who do they blame for it? Do they blame themselves and their bad policies and their unwillingness to stand up for workers and against the powerful and the establishment? No, they blame Russia. I'm not fucking making this up. He's blaming Russia. So Biden says he has been briefed on Russian efforts to spread misinformation related to the 2022 midterm elections. Look what Russia is doing already about the 2022 elections and misinformation, Biden said at the Office of Director of National Intelligence, the ODNI. It's pure violation of our sovereignty, he said. He said that. Biden said the intelligence community needs to take on the rampant disinformation that is making it harder and harder for people to assess facts, be able to make decisions, and then eat cheese. What? I don't know. I think that's what he was saying off the top of his head. Biden repeatedly referenced Russian President Vladimir Putin during his remarks, suggesting at one point that he believes Russia's weakened economy makes Putin more dangerous in the cyber realm. So I just want to let people know. So the people who are doing nefarious, criminal, corrupt shit in America, meaning the Democrats and the Republicans, want you to think that that's because of somebody else. They want you to think it's because of Putin or Russia or whatever the fuck. It's certainly not because of them, right? So they want you to think that that's the problem when the problem is actually them. I just want to, so that's what's happening, and that's what happened after 2016 when Hillary Clinton, the most richest moneyed political machine in the history of America, lost to a game show host, and they didn't want to do an autopsy to figure out why that happened. What they wanted to do was blame Russia and racism, which are two things that have always existed. So it couldn't be those two things, right? So it had to be something else, but they didn't want to figure it out. So here we go. During his remarks Tuesday, Biden reflected on the evolving and growing threats in the cyber realm. The president revealed that he believes that if the U.S. becomes involved in a war in the future, it will have been triggered by a cyber attack, okay? He's setting us up for fucking more military spending. That's all this is. That's all this is. We've seen how cyber threats are able to cause damage and destruction in the real world, Biden said. Biden continued, I can't guarantee this as you're as informed as I am, but I think it's more likely we're going to end up, if we end up in a war, a real shooting war with a major power. It's going to be as a consequence of a cyber breach of great consequence. So this is a guy who still thinks we use floppy disks, telling us that the next Third World War is going to become over fucking cyber attack. So what this is, again, is they're scaring you so they can spend another $20 billion on cybersecurity that goes right in the pockets of Raytheon and Booz Allen. That's exactly what this is about. Why do you think they're talking about UFOs right now? When I went on Joe Rogan a year ago or 2 years ago, he was like, Jimmy, this is real. They're seeing UFOs. They've been seeing fucking UFOs since they invented planes, and they've been denying it. Why are they admitting it now? Because they want you to spend another $40 billion on fighting space aliens. That's why they want you to do that. Because they've run out of Al-Qaeda and al-Nusra and ISIS, and they can't make you afraid of a kitchen knife anymore. Now they have to invent aliens for you to spend more money. Do you remember how they would do it? Oh, they're like, oh my God, there's ISIS. ISIS, they're so crazy, they're gonna cut your head off with a kitchen knife. They're maniac animals. Why don't they blow your head off with a Christian bomb? Don't you know that Christian bombs made in factories by Christians, they don't hurt you when they explode, they hug you to death. That's what happens. It's like, oh, come here. Dead. So that's all this is. This is about Joe Biden doing the bidding of his donor, of the donor class, which is Wall Street and the military-industrial complex, and he's trying to scare us about an outside threat that doesn't exist. Russia has a lower GDP than California. Did you fucking know that? People don't know that. They have a lower economy than the state of California, but they want us to think that they're controlling the entire world, which they are not. Who's controlling the entire world? The military-industrial complex, because we've been bombing the fucking shit out of it for the last 30 fucking years with impunity. Okay.
You know what's cool, Jimmy? You know, this stage right here and this room accounts for a pretty sizable percentage of people in this country who didn't fall for this fucking Russia bullshit.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you, Jimmy and Steph. Thanks to you guys. It's crazy. 4 years of this bullshit. It's crazy.
It even forced a gentleman Canadian to swear at people, which I thought was nice. And called them stupid, which he doesn't. I don't talk like that, but he talks like that. And I don't know where he picks it up, probably from his fucking father, but I don't talk like that, right? My dad was a cop, he was a gentleman and a scholar. Unlike, I don't know how he was raised, but I don't know where that fucking bullshit comes from. My dad. Thank you. No, thank you. There's more to this. Biden met with the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, and the Director of the National Counterterrorism prior to delivering remarks on roughly 120 intelligence officials. Haines, who introduced Biden, called him an avid consumer of intelligence.
No!
What the fuck? I'm an avid consumer of unintelligence. Every dumb thing in the world I just ingest. You know, like Jen Psaki's press conferences, shit like that. Anything? No? Okay, here we go.
Is there a plaque for that? Does Biden get a plaque? You, sir, are an avid consumer of intelligence. Hanging on the wall.
Hang it. That's a guy who listens to the CIA and the NSA. And I wonder why we're bombing 9 different countries. Hey, we're bombing the poorest people in Africa. Why? Because I am an avid consumer of intelligence. And there is nothing smarter than bombing nomads. Half the country of Somalia doesn't have a home. Do you know that? They're fucking nomads. He's bombing literal people in the fucking Stone Age back into the Stone Age. That's it. They're already there. And,
Yes, we can.
hey, what I said, did the Russians tell people that they would get a $15 minimum wage, a public option for health care, student debt relief, and a $2,000 COVID check relief? Is that the kind of misinformation you're blaming on the Russians, you fucking piece of shit? Because that's the kind of misinformation you're spreading. We're doing stand-up comedy in Florida, in West Palm Beach, and Dania, and then we're going to Buffalo, Baltimore, Tempe, and Portland. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all our tickets.